How's it going, Knicks fans? Welcome back to another episode of Fireside Knicks. I am your host, Dylan Backer, and last night we got a bit of breaking news. Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo are now on their way to the Minnesota Timberwolves in exchange for Karl-Anthony Towns. This was a huge blockbuster trade that broke late last night. I'm still in shock about it. I'm still trying to process the trade. I was not expecting it. I can imagine a lot of you guys were not expecting this trade as well, but there are many pros and cons to this, and we're just going to jump right into it. So let's start off with the fact that Randle and DiVincenzo are gone, right? We just made a video the other day about Randle and the big season that he was going to have. I was expecting him to play a big season. This was going to be really a career-defining season for him. He might have had to play center. Would have been completely different circumstances for him. Circumstances he's not used to. Obviously, the whole contract negotiations, too, as well. You can enter free agency as soon as next season. And he, had the extension stuff that was stalled out. That, of course, was a big storyline surrounding Randle all offseason. Well, it's no longer the Knicks' problem now. It's now the Wolves' issue to deal with. And, as much as it hurts me to say it, I think it was the right decision to move on from Randle if he wasn't going to end up budging on the negotiations for the extension. Now, this is coming from somebody that has defended Julius Randle to the core. I am one of Randle's biggest supporters. I have 2 of his jerseys inside my closet. I think he's a fantastic player. He's a guy who puts up 25, 10, and 5. There are not many power forwards that do that. He's one of the most dynamic players at his position in the NBA. But I ultimately think that they ended up doing the right thing. If they were going to end up trading him, that they replaced him with a guy that is equally or arguably better than Randle, in this case with Towns, right? I think that it sucks seeing him go. And I know me, myself, and a bunch of other Knicks fans create this attachment with Knicks players, right? We really want to see these guys thrive. We want to see them bond and play well together. Sometimes it just doesn't work out that way. What I will say is I do kind of wish that we were able to get a full season of the Brunson, Anunoby, and Randle trio, especially now with Bridges in the fold. I was really excited to see a full season of that because the 12 games we got of that last season was phenomenal. I mean, they were blowing out teams left and right, dominating games against teams like the 76ers, the Nuggets, the Timberwolves, all teams that made the postseason. They were rolling. And then, of course, the injuries broke it all apart. It kind of ruined it for them. Knicks still ended up making the postseason, but fell short in the second round, again, because of the injury bug. And that sucks. It really sucks that Randle's last game as a Knick, his last moments as a Knick, was a shoulder separation. That really sucks to see. I really feel for the guy. I'm very thankful for all the time that he spent in New York, though. The guy signed here back in 2019 when it was frowned upon to do so, and he helped turn around the franchise, and he is the sole reason, honestly, he is the sole reason here why we are able to make win-now moves like trading for Mikal Bridges, trading for Karl-Anthony Towns, why we were able to sign Jalen Brunson, why we were even able to sign DiVincenzo in the first place. I don't think a lot of these guys sign with the Knicks if Randle doesn't turn around this franchise. It was when he signed with the Knicks, he literally got laughed at. Everybody laughed at the Knicks for missing out on Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving and signing Julius Randle instead. Everybody laughed at us. And you know what? Of course, the hindsight is 2020, but look at how amazing we turned out, and look at what happened with the Nets, right? Of course, nobody could have predicted this was going to happen for either team, but still, the point still stands with that. And as for DiVincenzo, I want to say this. I think people are overrating the loss of DiVincenzo just a little bit. And the reason I say that is because, yes, last season he was great. He stepped in when many of the Knicks players were injured. He took on a much bigger role, took the starting shooting guard job earlier on in the season. He had his best season as a pro. He averaged 15 points per game. He had the third most three-pointers in the NBA and had the most three-pointers made in Knicks history, which is awesome. I thought he played great. He got more shot opportunities, and he thrived on it. But he wasn't going to get that kind of production again. He wasn't going to get those same opportunities. And the reason is because Bridges is, of course, here now. So DiVincenzo was going to have to take a back seat and come off the bench as probably the team's 7th or 8th option. And SNY's Ian Begley even noted that as a part of why the Knicks were willing to move on from him. Not necessarily because DiVincenzo requested a trade, because he did not. But DiVincenzo did express displeasure with the fact that he was going to have to take on a lesser role, less shot opportunities, less minutes played, all that stuff. And you know what? I don't even blame him for being upset about it, because if you just had your best season as a pro, fresh off of a new contract you just signed, and then the following offseason they basically trade for your replacement and you're basically forced to go back to the bench, I would be upset about it too. I don't blame him. Now, of course, I know he's going to probably be coming off the bench in Minnesota, but there are more opportunities for him to get shots there because Minnesota has a pretty weak bench, and I know the Knicks bench is not exactly superior either, but Minnesota also has very little guard depth, right? Mike Conley is their starting point guard, and Anthony Edwards is kind of just their dynamic two-way guard / forward, whatever you want to call it, right? DiVincenzo is probably their best three-point shooter now by far. So right there, he's going to get the opportunities to put up a lot of shots, put up some big numbers, and hopefully for him get a lot of minutes. I'm, of course, rooting for Randle and DiVincenzo. Those guys were huge contributors for us last season. Randle especially the last 3 seasons, a huge reason why we are in this position to make a move for a guy like Towns. But now I want to talk about Towns and the move that they made to get Karl-Anthony Towns, of course, and what he could bring to the Knicks, right? So first things first, he addresses the need at center. He immediately addresses that need. The Knicks center room was bleak. I mean, Mitchell Robinson was down with the injury, and he's not expected to come back until around December or January. That is a very long time that the Knicks were going to be without a center. Julius Randle was probably going to be starting at center on opening night had this trade not occurred. That's how bad it was. They let Isaiah Hartenstein left in free agency, and they didn't really have a backup plan. They signed Precious Achiuwa, which, is fine, but he is an undersized big man, and I don't think the Knicks necessarily envision him as a center. I think they envision him more as a power forward, but now at this point, I think they're going to bank on him to be the backup center, because I don't know if Mitchell Robinson will stay on this team much longer, and I'll get to that in a few minutes. But what Towns can bring to the table here is obviously shooting, but most importantly, a 5 that can space the floor. The Knicks have been looking for a guy like that for years. Isaiah Hartenstein was the closest thing they had to a floor spacing center, and it's not necessarily for the scoring, because he's not exactly a shooter. He's got some ability to shoot the 3-ball once in a while, but it's not his strength. He's more of a playmaking big, and it was still largely impactful, do not get me wrong. His playmaking and his float game and all that stuff was fantastic, and it was great for us. It was a huge plus for us. But now, with Towns in the fold, right, him and Jalen Brunson could form one of the best pick-and-roll duos or pick-and-pop duos in the entire NBA. You just gave Brunson another guy that can shoot, but most importantly, a guy at the center position who is 7 feet tall that can shoot. Towns shot 42% from 3 last year. He's close to 40% for his career. He's a 20-plus point per game scorer lifetime. He's been that way almost every single season of his career. And you just gave Brunson honestly, this is a really good fit for that. I really do, because now Brunson is surrounded by everybody on the floor that can shoot, and that the fact that they didn't have that in the years past was what hurt the Knicks. If you look at the 2023 playoffs when they were eliminated by the Miami Heat, what was the big reason why they lost that series? Because they couldn't shoot, right? They added some shooting this season, of course, by bringing in Anunoby during midseason, and it helped them. It helped the offense really flow. The offense was gelling. The guys were shooting the ball well. Of course, when Randle and Anunoby both went down, the shooting kind of diminished a little bit, which is to be expected. Those are 2 of your best players right there, so, I can't act surprised about that whatsoever. But now that you have Towns, who is a guy who has a proven track record of being a very, very good offensive big, and if not, he might even be one of the best offensive bigs ever. And maybe that sounds a little crazy to say, to put it with Karl-Anthony Towns, but how many 7-footers do you know can shoot 3-ball at a clip like that? There's not many in the league that can do that. You're looking at like Kristaps Porzingis and then like a very few other people, right? And another thing I want to add to this too. This trade, now that you put Towns at center, because the starting 5 is probably going to be Brunson, Josh Hart probably slides back into the starting 5. Then you got Bridges, Anunoby, and Towns, right? A lot of that is positionless. I think Hart, Bridges, Anunoby, I don't think they're necessarily going to be like slotted at a specific position, and that's what they'll be all year. I think it's kind of just be, they're going to match up with whatever's best suited for them based on who they're playing. But I do think now adding Towns, you match up with the Boston Celtics even better than you did before. I thought they matched up with them fine, but now that you have a center, a 7-footer that can match up with Kristaps Porzingis, I think you have everything that you want to match up with them. You have a pretty identical starting 5 to the Celtics. You have 2 All-Stars. You have 3. Everybody can shoot. You have the role player. You have Josh Hart, who's the pesky role player. Celtics, of course, it's Derek White. you have exactly what you want. You have a good combination of high-level scoring and high-level defense. Now, of course, I want to see what this looks like on the court because, of course, I have my skepticism about this deal because I know Karl-Anthony Towns is not exactly an aggressive defender or an aggressive rebounder. I do think, though, it'll still end up working out for them. I think this trade's kind of a win-win for both sides. I don't think either team necessarily got worse here. I think the Wolves added an all-star and a good three-point shooter to a team that just made a conference finals appearance, so they're looking to, take advantage of that and capitalize. And I think the Knicks filled in a major need to really fortify their roster and solidify themselves as contenders. I really do. I mean, when was the last time we saw the Knicks make this many win-now moves in one calendar year? In the year 2024, they have acquired OG Anunoby, Mikal Bridges, and Karl-Anthony Towns. And Karl-Anthony Towns is locked on a contract for a while. Yes, it's a very expensive contract. He's making like upwards of $60 million a year. But he's locked on a contract for a while, so the Knicks don't have to worry about any contracts with him anytime soon. They can make him a part of the championship window with Jalen Brunson, OG Anunoby, and hopefully if they can extend Mikal Bridges, he is a part of that as well. And the Knicks have a lot of potential here. I think they have the capability to be a top 5 offense in the entire NBA. They already were one of the best offenses in the league last season, and I think they're only going to even be better at that this year, now that you have so much shooting. The bench is a bit of a weakness. Not going to act like it's not. The bench is probably going to end up being Miles McBride. Tyler Kolek might find his way into the rotation now. Marcus Morris might find a way onto the roster as well. And Precious Achiuwa probably serves as the backup big. And then when Mitchell Robinson comes back, maybe he does. But that, again, back to what I had said before, I don't know if Mitch is going to stick around much longer with the Knicks. He's currently the only member from the 2021 playoff team that is still left on the Knicks. I don't know if he's going to stick around, though. I think at this point, Mitchell Robinson's spot on the roster is in jeopardy. I really do. I mean, the Knicks just traded for his replacement, basically. He's going to be playing, and it's not like Mitch is going to ever gain that starting spot back, unless, of course, Towns were to get injured. He's not going to gain that spot back. Towns is an all-star. Towns is a guy who's averaged 20 a game for his career, an all-star player, great three-point shooter. That starting spot's not going to get relinquished by him, right? So, at this point, where does Mitch really fit? Yes, he could theoretically be the backup center, but you're not going to play Towns for 20 minutes. You're going to play Towns for like 30 to 35 minutes a game because now he's your second best player. So where does Mitch really fit? I mean, those are questions we can really have deeper later on in the season or when it's closer to Mitchell Robinson's return or unless a move happens before the start of the season. But that's something to consider. It's something to think about, especially after this move to get Karl-Anthony Towns. This is definitely something to think about. But overall, I can't grade the trade right now because I want to see how it plays out on the court before I give it a grade. But guys, let us know what you think about this trade in the comments section below. A lot of different moving parts. I know some people are heartbroken about DiVincenzo and Randle leaving. I am a part of that group. I really wanted to see Randle really succeed in a new role. I wanted to see DiVincenzo flourish off of his best NBA season. Unfortunately, sometimes it just doesn't work out. The NBA is a tough business. But you know what? I think the Knicks got better at the end of the day. And I want to see, I hope that assumption that they're better lives up to it. I hope they play really well in the regular season. And we'll just go from there with it. But yeah, like I said, let us know what you guys say in the comments section below. Make sure you follow us on all of our social platforms, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, all that stuff. We'll see you guys in the next episode of Fireside Knicks. Peace out.